Good evening, Steeler fans. Welcome to Know Your Enemy. I'm your host, Geoffrey Benedict. With me, as always, Shannon White. Shannon, how are you doing today?
Doing excellent. Just ready to talk to a friendly enemy, a frenemy this evening, and talking to Pat Lane.
And Pat, thank you for joining us. Pat comes to us from Pats Pulpit on SB Nation, just like Behind the Steel Curtain. He's the arch nemesis villains of the internet on SB Nation there as a Patriots representative. Yep. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm living. I had a nice golf tournament today, which was nice. Got the day off from school, so that was good.
All right.
So that was an enjoyable. I had a nice, enjoyable day with no eighth graders annoying me. So that was nice.
I have to ask you this because obviously Brady left. He's in Tampa Bay. The Patriots are rebuilding. They're in year 2, year 3, whatever they're in here. Is it the same being a Patriots fan? Does you still get the same amount of hate for being for the Patriots out there as there was even 3 years ago?
Yes, yeah, but the hard thing is that hate, I used to embrace it because then I could just be like, well, yeah, okay, go ahead and hate. And then, in February, we'll be in the Super Bowl again. Or, we play in the AFC Championship game 8 straight years. It doesn't really matter what you think.
Yeah.
But now it's like, okay, you hate us. And also we're not that good anymore. Right. So Bills fans are like, oh, you guys suck. And, and it's like, all right, well, you're the little brother who's finally grown up. Yeah. And, and we got rickety and old and now you can pound on us a little bit. And so unfortunately we got to take our medicine for a little while. It's, but it is what it is. And most people are okay, right? There's not too many people that are aggressively mean about it. So I don't mind it, coming from, friends and whatnot, or people that I interact with the internet. I don't mind the hate. Because it's all fun. It's all for fun for me. So
you can always run into your closet, cradle those 6 Lombardi trophies and cry yourself to sleep.
That's someone posted a meme of somebody crying with the 5 trophies, and then they're wiping away their tears with the 6. Yeah. I'm like, that's pretty accurate. Yeah.
All right. Before we get into real questions, I need to show this as a comment from our group. I know Shannon talked to me. He was going to talk about this before the show started. Here we go. The important thing we do need to establish today: Jesse James caught that ball.
I mean, kind of didn't, right?
Oh, yeah. Not at the time. At the time, the rules were a little bizarre.
I mean, listen, by the letter of the law, he didn't catch the ball, but the law is stupid because he clearly caught the ball, but the rule says that he didn't. It's just like, what are we talking about? It's like Calvin Johnson catches the ball in the end zone and throws it on the ground, and it's not a catch. And you're like, well, how is that not a catch? He clearly caught it. It's
handed
just
to the referee, and they're like, you didn't have control.
Right.
You didn't have All right. Now, go ahead, Shannon.
I was going to say, Pat, the best thing is learn to embrace the hate. Love the hate, because that means you're good.
Right.
It's when you talk about the Steelers and you talk about the Patriots, and used to you talk about the Cowboys, but they've been irrelevant for so long.
20 years. Yeah.
They still talk like they're included in that.
Right.
The 49ers are closer at least. But the best teams are the ones that are hated the most. But for the Steelers have the Ravens, who there's a lot of hatred there, but there's also a lot of respect.
Right.
Then you have the Bengals and the Browns, 2 teams that's never won anything.
Right.
And their fan base hate us, hate the Steelers and Steeler fans, but they lack the respect. I mean, I don't know if you've seen Sunday's game, but it was a hard hitting game because those 2 teams do not like each other.
Yeah.
My question for you is, I'm not as familiar with the Patriots, obviously. Who does the Patriots have? I mean, Miami hasn't won anything in forever. Buffalo's been there 4 times and never won anything. And then you got the Jets. So who is the rivalry? I mean, I know Miami's becoming an issue.
Yeah.
But who does the Patriots fans look at as who's the Patriots Ravens is what I'm trying to say.
Well, the Ravens sometimes are the Patriots Ravens, to be honest with you. I mean, it's like, that's like the team that we had that rivalry with, and they would always come in and play us tough in New England. And I feel like they were a team that was never afraid to come in to Gillette, right? And play us. And so they were the team for a while. And you say, like, the Jets just hate us, but they're terrible. The Dolphins fans hate us. They don't even exist. I don't even know. I don't know 10 Dolphins fans. Like, so it's like, they're not even real people, so they don't really hate it. And the Bills, of course, have hated us forever because of where we are. But I always so I have family from Buffalo. So I always kind of had a soft spot for the Bills. So it's a little bit different for me. But honestly, it's really kind of like the Ravens, the Steelers, the teams that were always good, in these last 20 years. The Steelers were always in the playoffs. The Ravens were pretty much always in the playoffs. Like, those were the teams that you built those rivalries with because you played the biggest games and the biggest moments against those teams. And obviously wherever Peyton was, which of course he's gone now, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like the Ravens and the Steelers are those teams where it was like those heated rivalries. And, we didn't like them, but I always had respect for them because I always knew that, like, guys like Ed Reed and Ray Lewis, they were going to show up and play, and they weren't going to be afraid, right? And Roethlisberger would show up and play no matter what. And, like, he'd be hobbled, running around with 19 injuries, and he'd still gut it out and get there on the field. And you knew the Steelers are going to be a tough out no matter what the situation was. So, I mean, it's almost, we almost kind of had to go outside the division because the division wasn't very good for so long, right? So, but I kind of feel like the AFC North really was kind of the spot with the Ravens and the Steelers for us, at least for the last 20 years. Maybe a little different now, but at least, until as long as Brady was here, that's kind of what it was. It's growing into now Dolphins and Bills, especially. The Bills just circled on the calendar every year. They're like, we have to beat the Patriots every single year, right? And so that's one of those things where we're going to lose 46-10 to the Bills until we can compete with them because they're going to run up the score on us because they're like, you've been killing us for 20 freaking years. Like, we need to get some of that back, So.
Absolutely. All right. For this team specifically, all right, looking at it, where is this team? Where do you think this Patriots team is? Do you think they're a few lucky breaks from being a playoff team? Are they a rebuilding team? Are they a team looking for a good draft pick? Where do you put them?
So I have no idea. I have no freaking idea. I went into Sunday thinking, all right, everyone's pessimistic. I wrote an article on Sunday about how they were going to win the game. And I thought, hey, look, I know they haven't looked great, but things are going to look better when they're together. And then they came out and just looked like absolute dog poo. It was unbelievable. I mean, they were terrible. And, and the thing is that their defense played good enough to keep them in the game, right? There was one fourth down play with a busted coverage that ended up being a touchdown. Outside of that, they gave up 6 points on defense. The offense just couldn't get anything going. And when they were able to break a big play, Nelson Aguilar's 2 steps behind his defender, and Mac just misses him, right? And so, like, it's those types of things where you just, like, you have to take advantage of the opportunities. And the Patriots are a team that, and they kind of suffered from this last year too. They don't have that home run hitter. They don't have like that amazing player. And that's why Tyquan Thornton getting hurt sucks because he's got that game-changing speed that the league is looking for. But he's hurt, right? So like they're methodical and making plays, and it takes a while for them to get going. So when you get the opportunity to do something, you have to do it. And and they weren't able to do it on Sunday. So I have no idea. I know they're going to play good defense. And I think Mac Jones is still the guy, but the offense just was terrible. I mean, they came out firing in the first half. It was great. First drive was awesome. He throws a pick. And it was questionable, maybe pass interference, maybe not. But like, you still, you got to make that play as the receiver. You got to throw a better ball as the quarterback, like all, the whole thing. And then the rest of the game looked like garbage until they came out in the second half. So like, short answer long here. Like, it just, I have no freaking idea where they are. I think they're a 9 to 10 win team. I really do believe that. But what I saw on Sunday, that's not a 9 or 10 win team. That's a 7 win team, maybe even less. And so we'll see what happens on Sunday against the Steelers. But if they trot that performance out there, it's going to be ugly.
I love quarterback system unions. I mean, certain quarterbacks go to certain systems, and you see it and you're like, this is a perfect fit.
Right.
Now, a lot of my colleagues were like, Mac Jones, we're not too impressed by him. And I'm like, if he goes from Alabama, he is perfect for Belichick in New England. And I thought that was a perfect. I mean, look at the crap that Lawrence found himself in with Urban Meyer and Jacksonville. Some quarterbacks are set up for failure. He was set up for success. And I was not shocked that he had a really good rookie season and that they were able to go to the playoffs. That being said, how do you feel about Mac Jones? What is the average fan feel about his progression and what is his ceiling? Is he a guy that can get the Patriots deep into the playoffs? To me, I don't see the same weapons on offense that the Patriots have had down through the years, whether it be a running back or receiver. There's definitely no Gronkowski,
Right.
So I'm not really sure that who he's working with. I know he's got a great coach, but as far as the talent level of the offense, where do you think his ceiling is starting in his second year?
It's a good question. I mean, I always look at the comp for him as Kirk Cousins, and I know that a lot of NFL fans are gonna be like, "Ugh, Kirk Cousins," but like Kirk Cousins is a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. He's a good quarterback. The thing about Kirk Cousins is that when the moment gets big, he pees down his leg, right? He can't do it. So, like, if he can be Kirk Cousins, but then also play well in those big moments, now you're looking at a player that's a top 10 quarterback and maybe even better than that, right? So, like, that's kind of where I look. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. He's not that guy, right? He runs okay, but he doesn't have the super strong arm. It's just not who he is. But he has to win cerebrally, whatever that word is, at the line, right? With his brain. With his brain.
Yeah.
He has to win with his brain at the line, pre-snap and post-snap. That's why the strip sack for a touchdown was alarming because, okay, maybe that was on Trent Brown, but also, like, Max sees that guy come late. He has to say, whoa, hey, that guy's coming. Like, we have to know that guy's coming. And nobody knew he was coming, right? So that's the type of stuff where it's like, we got to figure that out. And I think that's where he can win. He's a super hard worker. He makes the right throws for the most part. He makes all of the right throws. You can see it. Like, you see he's that type of guy, and all the guys love him and respect him, which is great. And that's a good first step. But it's just kind of like, can he continue the evolution of what he started last year, right? He had a fantastic rookie year. And I think his weapons got better this year. They traded for Devontae Parker, who did nothing on Sunday, but like I think is okay. And again, they draft Tyquan Thornton, who is going to be good. He just is hurt right now. So it's, they're getting better on offense, but it's not all there yet, right? All those pieces aren't working together yet. So the hope is high-end Kirk Cousins, right? Which is top 10 quarterback in the NFL, which to me, if you put enough pieces around him and you have the coaching staff that the Patriots have, you give yourself a chance to win a game, to win any game. All you got to do is get in the playoffs, and then you never know. You just never know what's going to happen in any game. And so, and as long as he can perform in those games, then, you have a shot against anyone. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for him. And we'll see, but that's what I'm hoping for him.
One quick thing. You said Kirk Cousins. I see Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo got the 49ers there.
He did.
But when he had the opportunity to hit that big play, he missed it.
Right.
We don't know if Mac Jones would do, but I think he could get him there. I think in the right system, he could be very much like Jimmy.
Yeah. And it's not a terrible comp. I think he's better than Jimmy G, but I think it's close. I think you're probably right. I'd like to see him get better than Jimmy G, because if he doesn't, then to me, it's going to kind of be like, yeah, no, I'm not giving him his 5th-year option. Well, maybe give him his 5th-year option, but then I'm not signing him to some huge contract to be the guy, because Jimmy G isn't the guy, right? He's the guy with everything. San Fran is the perfect example. Everything was perfect in San Francisco. They had a phenomenal defense. They had a great offense. They could just hand the ball off to Debo, quick screens, quick passes, quick slants. He didn't have to do anything on his own. And then when the moment comes to it, he's got to hit that deep pass and he can't do it, right? So like that's the thing is that yes, you can get them there, but then are you going to have to make a play to win the game? And can you do that or not, right? And so it's like, yeah, that's great that he was the quarterback there, but San Fran recognized it like, yeah, no, he's not the guy, right? They gave up 2 first-round picks to go up and get, I still think they were going up to get Mac Jones, but they went up and got Trey Lance, and we'll see where that takes them. But they knew Jimmy wasn't the guy. So we'll see. I'm hoping for better than Jimmy G, but you never know.
The Patriots, looking at their I always like looking at team salary cap situations and what they're paying different guys. And right there at the top of their spending is the tight end position. Has that, and that's a consistent thing with Belichick's offense is those tight ends. He wants 2 of them, and he wants them to be guys that are tough to match up with. Is that still a thing working out for the Patriots? How are the tight end positions working out?
Hunter Henry had a great year last year. Played well, caught 10 touchdown passes. Was one of their most reliable receivers, and Jonnu Smith was a complete no-show last year. He didn't get a target until late in the game, but once he did I think he ended up with like 3 for 33 or something like that last week. He is very good with the ball in his hands. He's not the best route runner. He's more of a like a matchup guy where it's like, hey, we're going to throw a quick screen to him, or we're going to run, orbit motion and throwing the ball coming out of the backfield, or, he's going to run a jet sweep or something like that. And that's kind of what Jonnu is going to do, which is fine. And there's a place for that for sure. But, it's kind of surprising they haven't used him in more ways. I think you're going to see more as the season progresses. They're going to kind of move him all over the field and get him moving a little bit more. I think it's good to have a guy like Hunter Henry where he's reliable. Yeah. He's going to be able to get open. He's going to be able to catch the ball. He doesn't really drop passes at all, and he does get open. And so I think that's an important thing. And we saw, obviously Gronk's the best tight end in the history of the football. Like, it's a little bit different. It's not really fair to compare anyone to him, but like we saw what he could do for years. And you guys know too, in Pittsburgh, you guys have always used, whether it be Heath Miller or, now Freiermuth or, whatever the case may be, like you guys have always had good tight ends as well. And that helps move the offense forward when you have one of those reliable guys. And so, Hunter's more of the normal tight end, and Jonnu's kind of that move guy. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, you want to put a linebacker on Jonnu Smith, you can't cover him with a linebacker. So now you have to bring a safety down and cover him. Mm-hmm. If he's split out wide, now there's a safety on him. Well, where's that safety now? He's not over the top anymore, or he's not in the box anymore. And now either we can run on you or we can throw something over the top or whatever the case may be. So that he's a little chess piece, I think, more so than a wide tight end like Hunter Henry is.
One question I have is, before we jump off into the defense, is Mac Jones, they said he had his back, the MRI on his back.
Yep.
And that they said it was back spasms, which back spasms can, anything can trigger it, or you can have a slip disc, or, there's different things. How is he doing this week? Has he been practicing? And, what's his status for the week, or have you heard yet?
Yeah, so he's a full participant today in practice. Got some video from, they do a quick media portion of practice, really just warm-ups, right? But he looked like he was moving just fine. And then he talked to the media afterwards and said, nope, good to go. I'm playing this weekend. So he's already put that out there that he's good to go. He's playing. He feels good, he said. So, being a full participant is a good thing. I was worried that he was going to be kind of limited and not playing and get – but – if he's a full participant and his back is feeling good and everything's feeling good, certainly a good sign because it's week 1, and especially with a new offensive line, a reshuffled, it's not really new, but a reshuffled offensive line that struggled last week. It's, it's alarming. It's a little bit alarming to see something like that happen. So
move into the defense. I'm going to start my main draft crush, and the guy I wanted most of all to be on the Steelers in 2021 was Christian Barmore. Mm-hmm. He just reminds me of like a Cam Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, the typical Steelers defensive lineman. How has he been working out in New England? I know they kind of eased him in a bit last year. What do you expect from him this season?
I expect big things from him. He was awesome last year. He was just one of those guys that's just a force. Like, he just gets in the middle and he causes disruptions, right? And you're totally right. And he he didn't have the sack production, but he had a ton of pressures last year. So he was getting to the quarterback, but not getting the sack. And so the Patriots had a strip sack, which Miami recovered, but Patriots had a strip sack, and he was in the backfield. He didn't get credit for the sack, but he was in the backfield when the sack happened, right there, basically. And so, he definitely killed guys one-on-one all summer, whether it be the Patriots or really anyone else that they went against in joint practices. So he's pretty much unblockable one-on-one, and he's shown that all offseason, which has been great. I expect big things for him. Again, the sack production, just because the Patriots don't typically let those guys just go, right? They're not going to say, hey, Barmore, pin your ears back and go get the court. That's not what they do. So I expect the sack numbers to be like fairly pedestrian, probably like 5-ish again, maybe 6. But I think that his impact that is going to be felt in the middle, and people are going to walk out of those games saying like, this kid's a stud. And I think that's what I'm expecting from him. We'll see what happens, but that's what I'm expecting from him this year.
I always hate when the Steelers play Belichick and the Patriots, because I've always said one of the things that made Belichick and Brady great is they have no ego.
Yeah.
If he finds a weak spot, he could run that play over and over and over. I think one playoff game, I think the running back, Falk, might have had 14, 15 catches, because, that's a weak spot in the Steelers 3-4. Is that running back, that matchup out of the backfield. And they just kept, where Brady could have tried to force it into the strength of our defense. He's dropping that thing down and just moving it right down the field, and they scored every time. That concerns me this year, because the Steelers, one of their biggest weaknesses is in the middle, and especially in the coverage. So I expect that the Steelers are going to see a heavy dose of that. If that happens, which running back? I was going to switch to defense, but I have to ask you this. Which running back should the Steelers be looking out for this week?
So receiving out of the backfield is Ramondre Stevenson. So it's Ty Montgomery, who they picked up from Green Bay. He hurt his ankle, actually was carted off the field in the last preseason game, and then played last week in Miami, which I was shocked that he played last week in Miami. And then they just put him on IR a few days ago. So clearly he was trying to fight through it, couldn't. And so they said, okay, just take the full weeks off and you'll come back. But Ramondre Stevenson, who was a rookie last year, he's very fluid with his routes. They lined him up in the slot a few times, and he's a crisp route runner and does a nice job catching the ball. And so, anyone that would be catching the ball in the backfield, I would expect it would be him. They have J.J. Taylor on the practice squad that they could theoretically elevate for the game. Pierre Strong was a healthy scratch last week. He's a rookie this year. I wouldn't really expect too much from him. If there's anyone coming out of the backfield, to me, it would be Ramondre Stevenson. He would be the guy that I think is going to take those third down passing duties. And so, yeah, you might be right. He might have 8-9 catches this week, because they might look at that and say, yep, that's a weakness on this defense. And, they have a lot of speed, but the way they cover the backside of the backfield isn't great. And so we can exploit that, right? So that might be something that they do. But yeah, Stevenson would be the guy that I'd look for there.
All right. With the Patriots defense, what is the strength of the defense? What does Patriots defense rely on to get the job done? What's their main unit even?
So it's funny. It's funny because I thought it was the front going into the season. I thought it was the front seven, right? You got Barmore, you got Matthew Judon. I love Juwan Bentley, although he's kind of a 2-down player, but I love guys like Juwan Bentley. I think that they have a good, Lawrence Guy and Devon Godshaw, and I think they have a really good front seven. And then you got guys, Mike Tomlin today was calling Jonathan Jones a lockdown corner like J.C. Jackson or Stephon Gilmore, which he's like maybe fluffing him up just a little bit, but still, he did a really nice job against Tyreek Hill last week. So, the secondary, who I think a lot of people thought that secondary was going to take a big step back. I think the secondary is a little bit better than people expected. Jalen Mills got a really bad reputation in Philadelphia. I thought he had a great year last year, and he looked pretty good last week. He had that one blown coverage, but he had help over it was a whole thing on fourth down, and it was, he could have played it better, but the tackle should have been made right there when Waddle caught it. But I think that they're a pretty balanced defense, to be honest with you. They got a lot of safeties that can play. They got a lot of corners that do a nice job covering. and they have a pretty solid front seven. The thing is, they don't have that like one elite unit where they're like, hey man, Minkah Fitzpatrick's is a great example. Minkah Fitzpatrick's an absolute stud. This guy does everything for you guys, right? He does everything. And so it's like, okay, you don't like wherever he is, throw it somewhere else. Like, don't even look at him. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where you don't even go near him because he's going to make a play if you get it near him. The Patriots don't really have a guy like that. They just have all the guys just are solid. They're just good. So they're not like amazing, but they're all like good and can play well. And so they're like above average to really good to good in everything. They're just not overwhelmingly good in anything. That's how I would look at their defense, at least.
We have a someone gave us $1.99 here. Blake Literal gave us $1.99. His question is, Pat, favorite Steeler of all time. My favorite New England player was Mike Vrabel. Similar to a lot of Steeler fans who regretted letting Mike Vrabel go from the Steelers. So favorite Steeler all time.
I was gonna say, can I pick Mike Vrabel too? No. So I think, man, favorite Steeler of all time. I think it might have to be. It's probably a tie for me between Hines Ward and Polamalu. Both of those guys they were awesome. Polamalu with the hair, dude. He was so much fun to watch. Just coming through, blowing plays up. He was great. And he's one of those guys that I liked them. I almost liked them better because I knew the Patriots could take advantage of him at times because they would. Brady was so good at manipulating, and they knew like what he was looking for. So Brady would manipulate with him with his eyes, and he never really had those great plays against us. But I just feel like at least once a Sunday, if you were watching a Steelers game, that Polamalu was going to make some stupid play, and you can be like, "What? And how did he do that? He'd leap over the center and tackle the quarterback or something like that, or like something stupid where you're just like, how in the world did he possibly pull that off? The example that I'll use is like the 06 divisional game against the Colts. We got screwed on that interception, which is like an amazing interception, and they called it an incompletion. It was clearly an interception, but they called it incompletion. But it was like there's no way he should have ever been able to even make that play, and he still did, right? So he was awesome. He was great. So I might have to go Polamalu, but Hines Ward, man, Hines Ward's like one of those guys. He's like an Edelman type player where he just like he almost liked the block more than like the catch. It was great.
Oh yeah, at the time I've said a lot of times I'm sorry, Shay, I'm jumping in. I got to talk about my boy Hines here. I'm actually from Michigan. I'm a Michigan Wolverines fan, so I was a fan of Tom Brady until about 2003. But
I mean, yeah, fair.
But I always said like if Hines Ward didn't get Ben Roethlisberger till 2004 when he was 30, and I always said like if you put him on a team like New England, where honestly perfect fit for that team's like that early Brady culture of that team, he'd be in the Hall of Fame like a lock. I still think he should be, but that would have been his stats would be ridiculous. He would have been so great on those teams.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I've got to ask you this question because any Patriots fans, we don't meet a lot of Patriots fans where I'm from. I'm from West Virginia. We meet a few, but I always every team has the Holy Grail.
Yep.
If you talk about it's funny that Blake asked that question because it fits perfectly with my own. Everybody has, their favorite players.
Yep.
And for Steelers, my gosh, the list is, half the Hall of Fame still. But the Patriots have always done it differently. The Steelers are more of a family organization, whereas the Patriots are all business. And Kraft has run them that way. They traded Chandler Jones, and you know what I'm saying? It just so they don't have that special connection with the players and the fans a lot of times. So if you say, who's your favorite Patriot? Everybody says Brady. I say, who's your next? Now, you'll hear Gronk.
Yep.
But there is a couple of other names. So I'm not going to say who's your favorite, but who's your second favorite Patriot?
I'll tell you, my second favorite Patriot might be Tom Brady. My first favorite Patriot is Vince Wilfork. It's not even close. Vince is
good
Vince.
Job.
I love Vince so much. I actually have a jersey. I used to wear. I have season tickets, so I wear a jersey at every game. And so my old one was the Vince one, and then he signed it, which is dope. So I have a Vince signed jersey, and then I have a 8x10 signed by Vince, and I have a rookie card, like a whole thing. I love the guy. I played D tackle in high school, and like I was always like, he came out from Miami and he dropped all the way to 21. And I'm sitting there like, what did they do? Vince freaking Wilfork, and they drafted him. They sat there at 21 and drafted him. It was unbelievable. And he comes in and he's outrageous. And he's a guy that I know Seymour made the Hall of Fame this year. I'm hoping that he's going to get the call up soon because he was completely dominant and doesn't have the counting stats as some other guys do, but that was on purpose because he was playing nose tackle, right? He's taking up 2-3 blockers every play.
Hey, I applaud you for that answer. I applaud you. I have deep respect because we love Casey Hampton.
Yep.
And I always said that the two greatest nose tackles ever are Vince Wilfork and Casey Hampton. They both should be in the Hall of Fame because it ain't about statistics.
Right.
Just look at the average yards per game against them. Look at the run defense and look at what they provided. As you said, they're taking up 2 or 3 blockers. One dude. I mean, those two guys were beasts. So I applaud your answer, young man.
Thank you. I also, a little fun fact for you. Vince Wilfork has as many career interceptions as Jamal Adams. If you ever want to piss off a Jet / Seahawks fan.
Better hands. Better hands.
He does, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'll tell you, I was expecting you to give the answer of the jersey behind you.
Willie.
My favorite Patriot.
Oh, yeah?
Willie McGinnis. That guy. He was one of those guys I was like, man, if we could have him on the Steelers, just the presence in the field in the locker room. That guy who's just like the baddest dude on the field. You know what I'm saying? Like that James Harrison kind of mold of just everyone knows that's the guy.
Yeah.
Don't mess with that guy. And he just does what he wants. I loved Willie McGinnis.
He was awesome. Yeah. And so I was 10 when they drafted him. So when I really first started, I really got into the Patriots in 93 when they drafted Bledsoe. And I was 9, right? And so I was like just getting into it. I went to my first game that year. And then 94, I was like really into it. And they had the number 4 overall pick. Big Daddy Dan Wilkerson went number 1. Marshall Faulk went number 2. Can't remember who went number 3. I think it might have been Tony Baselli went number 3. Either way. And then number 4 was McGinnis. And like Willie he was always my favorite player when I was a kid because he was awesome. And he was mean and nasty. And I loved the guy. And so I won that from on a fantasy football contest from guys over at Eat Sleep Fantasy. And so, I was like, oh, it's Willie McGinnis. Like, that's so cool. So yeah, so Willie's up there. He's up there for me. I'm a defensive guy. What can I say? I love the defensive guys. Obviously, Edelman and Gronk is dead to me, but like, there's some guys that, I love all the defensive guys and Willie Mack's up there, but Vince is my guy.
Oh yeah. You are a perfect fit for our show because we love the same type of players.
Yes.
Now we're running late here. We haven't really gotten much into the defense. So really quick, I want to ask you if there's anything about the Patriots defense that you want to tell people in order for them to understand it. What would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing. So if you look at last year, right? Last year they played the Bills twice in non-hurricane games. And they did not force a punt, not one. And so the big focus and the emphasis was the fact that they didn't have enough speed. They just didn't have it. They didn't have the speed and athleticism to compete with really good offenses in the NFL. And so they got rid of Dante Hightower. They got rid of Kyle Van Noy. They got rid of Jamie Collins. And they said, we got to start over. We're starting over from scratch. So they sign Peppers. They draft 2 corners. They, and they switched their defense a little bit. So now that they have some of these more athletic guys, they trade for Mac Wilson. So they have, and Raekwon McMillan was hurt last year, but now he's back. So like you've seen 3 and sometimes 4 safeties on the field at a time. Peppers was out there playing middle linebacker at times against the Dolphins because they're just saying we need that speed, especially against the Dolphins. They need that speed, right? So. That's one of those things that they'll focus on. Now it might be a little bit different this week because the Steelers are a different type of team, right? They obviously have Deontay Johnson, who's super fast and a great receiver in his own respect, but then they have big guys like, Chase Claypool, and I know Pickens has speed as well, who like so jealous of George Pickens, man. I wanted him so bad, and I was just like, they traded back from 21 to 29, and I wanted him at 29. I wanted him at 21. Then they traded back to 29. I'm like, all right, George Pickens is great. Then they drafted Cole Strange. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Then they traded up to 50, and I'm like, all right, here he is, George Pickens. And they drafted him. I'm like, God damn it. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But so he's obviously looked great in camp, but it's a different type of offense than Miami runs, right? You don't have to worry about so much speed. So you do need some of those bigger guys on the field because Freiermuth's a beast. So you need bigger guys on the field that can take those guys down, and you're not worried as much about speed. So it'll look a little bit different. But I will say that their defense is significantly faster than it was last year, which I think is a good thing. And they have some guys that can get after the quarterback, which they really didn't have last year either. So obviously they had, Matthew Judon had a great year, but outside of him, there was no one that can get after the quarterback. So they improved the speed and they improved, kind of that pass rushing ability for them. And I just think I think they're a solid defense. And they don't do any one thing great. They're not like, hey, there's like this guy's an absolute superstar, right? And Devin McCourty, I think, is, if he's not a Hall of Famer, he's damn near close to a Hall of Famer because he's been, Mr. Consistent for 12 years here in New England, right? So and when you win the Super Bowls that he's won and you play the way he's played in big games, and when you're the captain of the best team in football for 10 years, you earn those type of things. But he's not this great playmaker. He just he's like the quarterback of the defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's funny because it's almost like the sum is greater than the parts, right? The sum of what I mean? The whole is greater than the sum of the parts, whatever that term is, right? It's like you look at the defense, like, okay, yeah, you get some good players, but then they get on the field, and I think they play better than some people might think. So I think that, you're going to see a defense that's better than what you might look at. Like, no, it's fine. Jalen Mills is the number one corner. Like, don't worry about it. They're going to be fine. I think they're going to be better than Steelers fans might be expecting.
All right. So before we go, if you could let everyone know where they can read your stuff, where they can find you on Twitter and wherever.
Yeah.
Let everyone know where they can read your stuff.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. This is fun. But I am Pats Pulpit is where I write my stuff, and it's at @plane_Pats on Twitter. I'm always talking Patriots, obviously, but Marvel or, I'm at school. I'm a 8th grade. I'm a math teacher too. So I'm always tweeting math stuff and stupid dad jokes and things like that too. So if anyone's interested in that stuff, and and that's pretty much it. And if you ever want to download our podcast, we're at Pats Pulpit on anywhere you get those podcasts. So.
Well, thank you very much, Pat, for coming on the show.
Definitely.
Great show. Great time talking with you. We'll let you go now. So thanks for being on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it, guys. Have a good night.
Man. You too.
Thanks.
All right, Shannon. What is it about the Patriots that worries you the most for this game?
Belichick. I mean, they dominate the Steelers. They've owned the Steelers. I mean, we still look back to Ben's first game against them, and they broke the Patriots' record winning streak, but I don't have good memories of playing the Patriots. They beat them they had Matt Castle at quarterback, so maybe now that Brady's gone, and maybe now the Steelers can stop the weaknesses the Belichick knows how to exploit. But until I see the Steelers do it, they always will make me nervous. I think the Steelers are a better team right now. I really believe that. I believe that from top to bottom, the Steelers are the more talented team. But Belichick he just seems to have the Steelers number, and they'll always be worried about that because he just can. We see what he did in that Super Bowl against the Rams. I thought they were going to get beat. I really did. And they shut that Rams. I mean, they never have superstars hardly. They'll have one really good guy on defense this day or two. I think it'd probably be Judon now. But he as he said, the sum's greater than the parts. He knows how to devise a scheme that's going to give the Steelers fits. And the Steelers have so many holes and weaknesses right now that it does concern me greatly.
Yeah, I will say it's crazy to me because Brady's been gone for a little while, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's been in Tampa Bay for a little bit. We used to play the Patriots almost like every 3 years. They were always putting us with the Patriots, and the Patriots just had our number. And then Brady leaves, and they're like, "Nah, man, you guys don't need to play the Patriots. Why would you need to play the Patriots? Brady's not there anymore. We can't, watch Brady just tear up, Dick LeBeau's defense, Keith Butler, whoever it is. Your great defense is just going to get absolutely shredded by Tom Brady." That's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I am excited for this, but I agree. Belichick's defensive game plans have always had the Steelers. He always takes away what the Steelers want to do, right? And Ben wasn't the quarterback that was like tricky, right? He's not gonna bait you into something. Ben came out and was like, "This is why I'm gonna, he's gonna play Ben Roethlisberger football." And Belichick did a good job of thwarting that a lot of the times, a lot of the games. Now we're seeing this is a very different matchup. When we think about, like, when was the last time there was a Steelers-Patriots matchup that did not involve either Ben Roethlisberger or Tom Brady?
Yeah.
You got to go
2 decades.
Right?
Yeah.
In my head, obviously, I go back to like 2001 because I'm going for punishment and that awful playoff game. But like, that's been it. It's been Ben Roethlisberger and Tom Brady have defined this matchup, and it's been a rivalry, not like a big time one because the record was not exactly balanced. But it was a big deal whenever they faced off, and those two quarterbacks were the big part of it. And now neither of them are there, and it's Mac Jones versus Mitchell Trubisky. It's going to be interesting to me to see what this even is. Like, is Patriots Steelers a thing anymore? Even I don't even know if that's a thing.
If you talk about, you somehow being just was not a good matchup. Okay, look at all the Hall of Fame quarterbacks during Belichick's tenure in New England.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger. You could just go down the list. None of them had success against New England.
Nope.
Even Peyton Manning, Manning was a student. I mean, he studied the game. He was cerebral. And Belichick thwarted him all the time.
Yeah.
He had limited success. He would have won more Super Bowls. He couldn't get past the Patriots. The only guy that you can say is Eli Manning. And even if you look at Eli, he didn't have monster games in those Super Bowls. But he made the plays when they needed it, and I don't think he's definitely not better than these other quarterbacks that I mentioned, but sometimes somebody just has your number. But Belichick, like you said, he knew, okay, we're taking Antonio Brown away. Y'all can do whatever else, but we're taking Brown away. Well, sometimes that's all the Steelers had.
Yeah.
You could single cover everybody else. Yeah. And so, that's the thing about it. We just don't know what to expect this week because we really don't even know what the Steelers offense really is or what they're going to look like yet. So,
well, if you look, they're the only other quarterback other than Eli Manning to beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl was Nick Foles. And I'm like, like you were saying, like those aren't the great guys. Those are the guys that are like, meh, they're maybe good. I don't know. But then they just have games that are wacky, the throws Eli Manning was making, the plays they were
completing. The helmet catch.
It was ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
And then you get Nick Foles out there, and that's all he did. Like, Nick Foles is doing crazy plays, but he can't run the offense the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, Foles catches a touchdown. I mean, it was nothing. It was not just your normal standard stuff. It was these crazy off-the-wall plays.
Mm-hmm. And now, to put a little bit in the Steelers' favor, that's Mitch Trubisky. Like, there were some plays, even last week, there were some throws he made that you're like, wait, like the one he evades a tackle, scrambling out, throws back across his body to Freiermuth, like running to his left, right arm back going that way. That's a tough throw.
But he
That's
squared his shoulders.
Yeah, and he
did. He squared his shoulders. Yeah,
it was crazy.
Yeah,
but he's the kind of guy that can make that play.
Mhm.
And then we saw, 3rd and 2, Deontay Johnson wins an out route, and he underthrows him, and Deontay Johnson's come back, and they don't get the first down. That happened a couple of times.
Mhm.
Like, Mitch Trubisky is that kind of quarterback. That if this was the Super Bowl, you'd be like, hey, maybe we might have a shot here. Obviously, this isn't the Super Bowl. This is week 2.
Yeah.
And neither of these teams are really Super Bowl favorites here. But I think it's not necessarily a negative to have Mitch Trubisky in this game, simply because he is the exact kind of foible you want for a Bill Belichick and how he runs his defense.
I got to ask you this question, because I've been waiting ever since, the Watt injury, and, looks like maybe 6 weeks, which thank the good Lord, it's not season ending. It doesn't appear to be.
Yeah.
But people's like, well, are you writing off the Steelers because of this injury? What is the heart and soul of that defense? He is the best player on the team, and he's dominant. And his presence is one of the reasons that Highsmith got 3 sacks. His presence is why that Hayward can get matched up on a rookie guard and torment him all day long. And that, Fitzpatrick could play his true free safety position where he was like a small linebacker last year because of how bad the run defense was. All that, he's so critical.
Yeah.
But I do think that with Reed now and Jameer Jones and whoever the other, that 4th guy will be, even if it's Leal and they slide him out every once in a while, just especially for a power package, or a larger goal line stand, I think that they can hold up. But the offense is definitely going to have to do more than it did last week. But I know that a lot of people are saying that they're writing off the Steelers defense. They're not going to see what we saw last week, but I still think that they can be all right and be competitive and keep the Steelers in these games. So how do you feel about it?
Well, you did mention we're not going to see what we saw last week. I will get to the rest of your question, but I do want to say this because I feel it has to be said every chance I get. Last week was something special. We watched Minkah Fitzpatrick pull off a game that the best comparison I can make for it is the James Harrison Baltimore game. I don't need to say which Baltimore game. Everyone knows the Baltimore game for James Harrison. Minkah Fitzpatrick just had a game that good.
Yep.
Going through his film, he had one play where he took a poor angle, right? It was coming across the middle and he was behind the play, and otherwise he would have tackled it right at the catch, right? But he took a poor angle and had to run back. Outside of that play, I watched the all 22 film and watching every play of the game. Every single one, he was fantastic. He was either doing exactly what he needed to do, taking something away, and they just went somewhere else. But often he was taking something away, and then when they went somewhere else, he took that away too. Plays where he's deep left safety, and he's tackling the guy in the right flat as he catches the ball. It doesn't make sense. Minkah Fitzpatrick was playing out of his mind. One of those just, career games. One of those games that's just like, that was incredible. We're not going to see that again. To rely on that, it's not reasonable, right? It's not reasonable. James Harrison was great. James Harrison didn't do what he did to Baltimore every week. Not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. With Watt out, right? Malik Reed can't fill Watt's shoes. Jameer Jones can't fill Watt's shoes. There's maybe 1 or 2 guys in the NFL you could somehow get on the Steelers right now and say, okay, I think we could run like 95% of where we were with TJ Watt. No one is stepping into TJ Watt's shoes and replacing him. No one. Nobody. Maybe go back in time, grab Lawrence Taylor, bring him forward. You'd be like, all right, we're even here.
Yeah.
That's the kind of level we're talking about. To cover for TJ Watt, the inside linebackers have to step up. The safeties have to step up. The cornerbacks have to step up. That defensive line, they're going to have to keep rotating, and they're going to all have to step up. Everyone is going to have to step up. The offensive line is going to have to step up. The quarterbacks and wide receivers, running backs, you list a position on this team. Every player at that position needs to step it up because TJ Watt is not out there. And that's really the only way you cover for the loss of a TJ Watt. I don't need to tell everybody the record last year. One of the craziest stats, the record of this team last year when TJ Watt played and when he didn't was on a pace for a Super Bowl season or the worst team in football. Right? That's the difference TJ Watt made last year. We saw it again here. He's that level of player. The entire team is going to have to step it up. The dream scenario for Steeler fans now is that this team does that. The offense steps up and gels. They get some of the charisma, some of the I don't know, the Wi-Fi, what AB and Ben called it. They get some of that developed.
Chemistry.
So they're on the same page. They're making the passes are in rhythm, right? You could tell at times Mitchell Trubisky is waiting for the receiver to break because he doesn't know how they're going to run that break. Right? The only person he really ever threw an in rhythm pass to was Deontay Johnson. That was it. Everyone else, he was waiting to see what they were doing so he could throw the ball to him because he doesn't know them. The offensive line, there's still some miscommunications and some missed assignments going on that are just, they need time to get together. They need to get on the same page. They need to get with this offensive scheme. It all needs to come together. If that happens and this defense steps up and we see Devin Bush look like a good starter or a solid starter, big step towards that week one. He in a not very demanding role and splitting snaps, he looked good. He looked serviceable. He looked like, hey, this is a guy you can trot out there and be your number 2 linebacker and be okay with it and actually be pretty good with it. We need Miles Jack to be, even more than he was. If this happens, right, and this team is able to, without TJ Watt, win a couple games here. Obviously, the first 6 weeks are tough. You've got the Bills, you got the Buccaneers, at Cleveland on Thursday night. Thursday night away games are awful. There's a lot of tough games here. But if they can come out of this with a winning record and then get TJ Watt back, that's the situation where you're looking at it and saying this defense came together and played good without him, and now he's back. Right? When you add TJ Watt to a good team, that's a Super Bowl contender. So that to me is the situation. We'll see what we get, because if we're a good team with TJ Watt out, then we're a great team when he comes back.
We talked about Harris earlier before the show with Pat, and Harris does not look the same. He is a power runner. He breaks tackles. If you have a foot injury or a strain and you can't drive through and power through like that, like he normally does, he's not going to be as effective.
Yeah.
And you almost, especially with all this going on, and would it be a time to give him a week or two to try to heal and get back to 100%, because they're going to need him. And maybe during that time with Warren and Snell and whoever, that the line could start to communicate better, start to gel, and start to become more effective, so that when he does come back healthy, that he could be more effective and help carry the team, which I think has been the plan all along. But he just does not look like himself. And I believe that they need to really try to help him make the right decision concerning that injury.
And this is, when people say you don't draft a running back in the first round, this is what they're talking about, right? Because Najee Harris was the Steelers' offense last year. And if he was healthy, he would be the star of this offense this year. But he has that foot injury, re-aggravates it. He's not looking like, you can tell his acceleration isn't quite there. It's a little bit like he was here, now he's here. His cutting ability is way down. He doesn't cut as well. He's not breaking the tackles as well. Like, when you take everything down a notch, all of a sudden, Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris look roughly on the same level.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not Najee Harris.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what he is. But we're seeing right here, Najee wants to play. The doctors have cleared him to play. As a coach, you've got a leader on your team who wants to play and is cleared to play. What do you do? Sit there and say, Najee, you're barely, like, you're the best running back on this team, but right now it's not by much. And we'd love for you to get back to being that guy. But, how long is that going to take? If he rests, obviously if you rest, it takes less time. But how do you manage that? For me, that's kind of a nightmarish situation where you're like, yeah, if Najee Harris is involved in the offense, he's taking hits. He's putting strain on those legs. He's making cuts. He's pushing with it. He's running his feet through contact and putting strain and massive amounts of torque on the same things that were hurt. And he's trying to get recovered.
Well, the way the offensive line is blocking right now, he's, again, having to try to make moves in the backfield. He's having to try to break tackles in the backfield. He's having to do too much. He's not having open run lanes and hit the run. One time, I think his best run was 11-yard run that was well blocked, and he got up the middle, and then he had some momentum, and he drove in there. I think that if they can block to that level, I think that there's a lot better chance of him not re-injuring or further injuring himself. But if it's like, he's going to get hit in the backfield every time, you're better off to rest him, protect your investment, I believe, and play Warren and Snell more as that offensive line gels and starts to communicate better. That's my concern. I'm afraid that the way things are looking right now, he's going to injure that where he's out for the year.
Or frankly, multiple foot injuries. These kind of injuries wear on an NFL, on a running back. We're talking about wear and tear, physical, literal wear and tear on a running back. And that's your shelf life of a running back is these little nagging injuries just build up over time. And all of a sudden they just aren't as quick. We saw it with Le'Veon Bell. His last years here, he still had the vision, still had the patience, but he didn't have speed. He was getting run down by defensive linemen. Like he just couldn't. His top gear was like second gear. He couldn't get out of it. He didn't have that speed anymore. He was still effective because that offensive line was great, and he still had his vision. Yeah, but he wasn't a guy anymore. Najee Harris, you put the same kind of wear on a Najee Harris, he's not going to be great because it's not something intangible that makes him great. It is his physical ability that makes him great. Is he's just going to physically beat you, win the run, win plays, break tackles. That's Najee Harris. But I'm with you. It feels kind of awful because I feel like I'm obviously living in my fears here, right? This is the negative side of me. This is that. But it kind of feels like maybe the best year of Najee Harris is behind him. And it's going to be watching him play when he shouldn't. Like, I don't know. That's my fear. I guess I love Najee Harris, love what he brings, love his leadership, love his personality, love the way he runs the football. But right now he's not physically that guy. So it's rough right now. I don't know what to do about it. It feels awful to me.
There is no easy answer.
Yeah.
And so that's why they get paid the big bucks. But one thing we haven't done is, do you have a prediction for this game?
Do I have a prediction for this game? Yeah. I'm going to go Steelers 24-20 when beating the Patriots. I think they take a lead, control it throughout the game, but it just kind of stays close, but they're kind of in control most of the game.
I'm going to say Steelers 21-18.
Okay.
I just think that it's going to be low scoring. The Steelers have more explosive weapons in their skill position players. I think that, like we saw last week, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Pat Fairmuth, maybe George Pickens this week. They'll make enough plays. And then you got Boswell, that can come in and win it for you. So I think that's what we'll see.
My one concern with this game, if you had asked me how the Steelers lose this game, my concern is with Mac Jones and the loss of TJ Watt. It's no secret every quarterback is better when they're not under pressure, right? Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing is when you find the quarterbacks that are really good against blitzes. Mac Jones is one of those guys. If you blitz him, he's really good. If you don't have him under pressure, he's really good. If you have a 4-man rush and you get pressure on Mac Jones, he drops off substantially. Mm-hmm. And that's the secret. Like everyone in the NFL knows, you have to be able to, if you can't deal with the blitz, teams are going to blitz you. You have to be able to obviously make plays when you're not under pressure, which is why they value, if you can get pressure on a quarterback with 4 players, you're going to win games. But that's even bigger with Mac Jones. That drop off when he has pressure on him and he doesn't have a hot read. It's not it's not an obvious blitz. Mm-hmm. He is much worse than other quarterbacks. He drops off substantially. Mm-hmm. Against the blitz, he's better than a lot of quarterbacks. And when he's in his pocket, he's really good, right? When he's secure. Mm-hmm. The Steelers with TJ Watt, man, you'd be looking at this Patriots offensive line and saying, Highsmith, Hayward, TJ Watt, we don't need to blitz you. You're going to be under pressure and we're going to be sitting on your outs and we're going to absolutely make you look terrible. That's kind of what I expected before the season started for this game to be like. But without TJ Watt, that's kind of a little rougher. And when you look at Brian Flores was obviously the head coach of Miami for the start of the post-Brady era where the Miami Dolphins have been winning and beating the Patriots. But if you look at it, Mac Jones didn't have bad games. He wasn't thwarting Mac Jones. Mm-hmm. It was more the Dolphins were outscoring them. Mm-hmm. Really, like they were outscoring the Patriots. They were winning special teams and on offense. But Mac Jones was still able to move the ball, still pretty effective. So if the Steelers go with, hey, we're going to make up for losing TJ Watt by blitzing a lot, I think that's where you could get into trouble. That's where they could get in trouble with Mac Jones. You'll get a lot of those passes to the running backs. You'll get a lot of the stuff to the tight ends, and that's where the Steelers can get in trouble. That's my concern with this game, but I don't think it's enough. I think the Steelers are going to win this game.
I think that the Steelers are better equipped to handle the things that the Patriots have done to them in the past. Again, there's not a Gronkowski, and they have a Terrell Edmonds to help with that issue. That's been an issue. Then I think that Miles Jacks and Bush will match up better in coverage with these backs out of the backfield, and we'll take that away and make the Patriots try to beat them with their wideouts on the outside. Which I know they did it with Chris Hogan in the day. They've done it with, but I don't see any of them guys that really concern me in that matchup, especially with Fitzpatrick being able to play his, do all the things that he does at free safety and not have to focus on run support. So that's why I give the Steelers a slight advantage, because I still think the Steelers offense is going to struggle. But I do think that they'll make enough of those plays like we were talking about, where they have a real advantage that they'll pull it out. So hopefully I'm right.
All right, Shannon, we gave our predictions for the game. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and tell people what you have coming up, what they can expect from you the rest of this week.
Well, I'm going to have an article coming out about a under the radar unsung hero from last week. And because I'm going to do my rookie review article every 4 weeks now, because the Steelers really don't have enough rookies that's going to be playing significant snaps to support the whole article. So now I'm going to try to focus on spotlight somebody maybe overlooked each week, and then do the rookie review maybe quarterly. So that's all I got coming out right now.
All right, and for me, Vertex came out today. It was on Minkah Fitzpatrick's incredible game. Went through and showed some of the plays that aren't the highlight plays, but shows just how he was impactful on every single play. Our guest today talked about Minkah Fitzpatrick. It's one of those guys you avoid and you don't even look his way. There are literal examples of Joe Burrow, like under pressure, his hot route is over that way, but Minkah Fitzpatrick's on that side of the field, and he's just staring at the left, hoping someone comes open because he's not throwing that way. I was like, I loved watching. It was just like, holy crap! Like there are places he's looking before the play. He sees Minkah move over there, and he just posts that, boom, gets that ball, is looking this way. Never looked to Minkah Fitzpatrick's side of the field. Just would not do it. Just like, nope, not going there. Not even testing that. Which, in all honesty, is the right. When Minkah Fitzpatrick's playing like that, that's what you have to do. You just have to accept that you just have to avoid one half of the field. But that is out. I've got one more article coming this week, one I'm putting a lot of work into, and it's about what's wrong with the offense, and it's about the difference that chemistry makes. Showing on film plays, saying, "Hey, this is where a throw that's a half second too late." Or here's a throw where you could tell the receiver's running a route differently than the quarterback expects him to. Not like he's running a slant when it's an out route. No, he's running an out route. But you can tell the quarterback is expecting him to run it differently than he's running it. They just don't know, like they're not used to the number of things like the number of footsteps it takes you to turn and then go to the sideline affects whether a throw is out at the reach of your hands or right in your chest or behind you. Stuff like that matters. And there's just some evidence that that's one of the problems they have right now, is that they just don't have a good beat on each other. This is a team that doesn't know itself very well. That's coming out. So look forward to that. Thank you very much for everyone that's been in our live chat. It's been great reading along the comments. Thanks for tuning in. Obviously, thanks to our guests. That was a great show with Pat Lane from Pat's Pulpit. Thanks, Shannon, for being with me here as always. And to everyone listening, have a great week, and let's go Steelers.